tell you every reason why Christianity is wrong. Nobody's there to learn anything. Nobody's there to gain anything. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know why they believe what they believe. Well, how can you understand it? It would only sit steal in absolutes. Atheism. Atheists don't understand the Bible. The Bible's packed with evidence for God. Atheists don't understand the Bible. The evidence for God. That's the big thing that's going on right now. So let's talk about that for a minute. Atheism. I'm not here trying to pick fights, and I think a lot of people are. And I think a lot of people are because we want to fight. If you're an atheist, you want to fight. If you're a Christian, you want to fight. You want to make sure you're on the right side, but you pick a side and then you fight. And now I'm not saying that there's no place for meaningful dialogue, right, as we hash out our issues. But in most cases, you're not even, the thought of bending on any issue is not even in either person's side. So you get all these atheist channels, and they're going to tell you every reason why Christianity is wrong, false, bogus, ridiculous, absurd, and then you get all these Christian would-be apologists and then in some cases legitimate theologians and apologists, and they're going to tell you every reason why atheism is absurd and ridiculous and inconsistent and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that these aren't good conversations to have. They're really good conversations to have. They're really good conversations to watch. But when you participate in these conversations and when you dialogue, oftentimes on either side, nobody's there to learn anything. Nobody's there to gain anything. We're doing this oftentimes for the wrong reasons. The bottom line, most people don't know. Most people don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know why they believe what they believe. They haven't hashed it out, and they get their information from secondhand authoritarian sources. So what do I mean by that? How do I know that the Bible's true, right? How do I know the Bible's true? How do you know anything's true, right? How do I know anything's true that I think I know? And if you're an honest person, then the answer to that question is going to be because somebody told you. How do I know the Bible is true? People are going to tell you what they've been told. And again, like I said, how do you know anything's true? How do I know anything's true? This is an epistemological issue. If you grew up in the church, then you're told the Bible is the Word of God. You're told that your whole life. You probably don't know what it means. You probably never put much thought into figuring out and how you would even investigate that for yourself. But you're just told, right? So somebody told you. If you're an atheist, you've come to the conclusion on your own that the Bible's not true, that there's nothing else out there, or you grew up in that type of home and that's what you were told, and so that's what you subscribe to. And it's not just that, we can look at it in terms of naturalism. If you go to school and you work in the sciences and you adhere to a system that we call methodological naturalism and all this stuff, and they're going to tell you that this is the only way you can know stuff, and that's the system that they adhere to. And on the other hand, if you're into philosophy or something else, you're going to be told, well, we deal in a different kind of knowing, of knowledge, so how do we know? But at the end of the day, most people are still just relying on what somebody else told them, and so when you see people going head to head, right, it's like, this guy's like, he's just saying all the stuff that Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and all this stuff, and then you got these guys over here, and they're just saying all the stuff that William Lane Craig and Gary Habermas, and they're just going back and forth with the stuff that they have heard from other people, and that's authoritarian epistemology, right? That means that I got what I know from somebody telling it to me. And the bottom line is, if you really search your life, that's how you know most things. That's how you know most things, is somebody told you. Now, the statement atheists don't understand the Bible itself is like, it's kind of a ridiculous statement, because if you're an atheist, by definition, you don't believe that there's anything beyond the natural, right? I'll put it that way. You're a naturalist. You think that all there is anything that you can see, touch, taste, observe with your senses. So by very definition, the topics that are being the premise, the thesis of the whole Bible is hogwash to you. So how can you understand it? There's no way you can understand it. And you're not coming there to learn anything. You're not coming there with an open mind to say, you know, if there's something here that I'm not aware of, then maybe I'll change my perspective. And to be fair, Christians are the same way. When I became a Christian, I saw something, I found something, I experienced something. And so because of that, I said, whatever comes along with it, this experience that I had, this deliverance, I'll take, you know. So, and one of those things was 6-day creationism, right? And somebody, I forget actually what he said, exactly what he said, but we were talking about like Genesis and, you know, Adam and Eve and God taking the rib out of Adam and creating Eve. And he's like, you don't actually like think that. And my answer to him was, well, you know, if that's what comes along with it, then sure, that's what I'm willing to believe. But I didn't think about it at all. And as I reached a point in my journey where I said, hey, you know, I want to have answers. I want to have thought through where I'm coming from. You know, I don't want to just take anything on somebody else's word. It's never been my style. I've learned everything I've learned in life the hard way. Old Trevor doesn't just do it because he was told to do it. It's never been my way. So eventually though, I became willing to alter within reason certain aspects, certain components to my theology, my philosophy of life, my worldview, and my Christian experience. Of course, at the core, the encounter that I had with Christ was ultimately the deal breaker, right? Nothing can take that away from me. So around that though, I'm open. I'm willing to hear things. When I went to college and I took my first natural science course, Origin of the Cosmos, at the very beginning of the course, the question was put out there: what if evolution was completely, irrevocably, indisputably true? And I'm like, okay, so like literally that would change nothing about what I've experienced, right? And at the core of it all, the core center, prime pillar of my worldview, of my paradigm on reality would be unaffected by that. That kind of opened my mind a little bit, because when I first started college, I started as a psychology major, and of course studying a science like that involves a lot of talk about evolution, and I wasn't ready for that because of the way I came up in my Christian background, was that, you know, I couldn't even hear the word. It just upset me. It made me mad. I wanted to fight about it, and I was afraid of it and all that stuff. But from that moment on, after that question, and then the second thing that the professor said, if everything is exactly how you thought it was, then why are you here? Like, when I went to college, I went to a Christian college, Regent University, and I just thought that it was gonna be everything that I already thought it was, right? I didn't know anything about any other brands of Christianity or why we believe certain things. You know, I just didn't understand any of those differences, and all I knew was what I was told, right? So my experience in the undergraduate situation on the university level was one where I was forced to, I'm looking around at my books, forced to examine other positions and forced to learn about the history of the Christian faith and how various traditions became valid and accepted and some unaccepted and what certain schisms were about, like all that stuff. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and say the average, everyday lay Christian doesn't know anything about it. And if they do know something about it, it's what they were told by their denomination. So all they really know about it is we're right and they're wrong because we do it this way, and that's why we're right about it, and that's a whole terrible thing. So anyways, getting back onto my point here about being willing to understand things. I told you about my 6-day creationism, but the more I learned about the universe and how, the history of science and the history of our cosmology developed, the more I became willing to say, I don't have to believe in 6-day creationism to still hold my experience with Christ as a core tenet to my worldview, right? There was some people in there that were like me in that course, and they just wanted to slam bam wham on evolution, and the teacher basically was like, that's really not what this course is about. He said, it's best just to leave it out of the conversation for now. And what he was really saying is, you don't even know anything about it, so shut up. But I knew that was true. I knew that I didn't know anything about it. But here's the problem that I encountered. I couldn't find out anything about it. Yeah, I couldn't find out anything about it. If I turned to atheistic literature, all I could get was an assumption that it was true on all levels, and that includes the philosophical axioms at the base of it, which I could get into that, but let's just say that even if everything they said about evolution, natural selection acting on random mutations over long periods of time, right? Even if everything they said about that observationally was true, they still can't observe that at the base of it there's no supernatural activity. It's just not in the cards, right? So that's an assumption, that's an axiom, that there's no meaning or no purpose or anything behind it. I can state something, but that's not an argument or a presentation of that fact. It's just me stating something, and that's authoritarian knowledge, right? All I've done is told you so. I haven't shown you, I haven't proven it to you, I've just told you so. And that's how everybody basically knows everything, right? Maybe that's too absolute. Only Siths deal in absolute, so I better be careful. Most people know most of what they know mostly by being told so. And what the person does is decide who they trust enough to accept what they're saying, right? So that's it for atheism and Christians. If you go to church, you probably just listen to what the pastor of that church tells you, what the bylaws and constitution of that church says, what your rules are there for engagement, membership rules, right? If you're an atheist, you probably do the same thing. You probably just do what you're told to do. You believe what you're told to believe. And on both sides of the aisle, what we don't have is free thinkers who are looking into these things. There are people like Thomas Nagel, right? Thomas Nagel's really big right now in the philosopher's world because he is incidentally an atheist who basically acknowledges yeah, there's holes, there's problems, but I'm still sticking to my atheistic guns. And we need more of that from atheists and from Christians. We need Christians to say, yeah, there's some holes in my theology. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm sticking to my guns here. But most of the time that doesn't happen. When they're pressed with a hole in their theology, they just say, yeah, well, you're going to hell anyways, so what difference does it make to me? You know, I'm walking away from this conversation. I'm going to be with the Lord, and you're going to burn in hell, so whatever. And you know, on the end of the atheists, when their back's against the wall, they just call names. You know, you're just an ignorant, dumb Christian anyways. Knuckle-dragging Neanderthal would believe anything that your stupid ancient book tells you. So there's no dialogue, right? There's no willingness to learn. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to this. People like me are Christians because they saw something. They found something. They experienced something. Nobody told me what to do. Nobody tells me what to do, all right? But when I come across something that I experience, I cannot move around that, right? So, and on the other end of things, and I didn't come from a Christian background. I wouldn't say I came from an atheistic background. Like, my parents weren't militant atheists, or anyone in my family, but certainly nobody worshipped God. There were no practicing Christians beyond, nominal Catholicism here and there. Or parents went to church when they were kids because their parents made them, but the parents didn't go to, like, that type of thing. Like there was no religion in my upbringing. So I went from nothing to experiencing something, and that's why anything that I encounter, I have to reconcile with my observations, if we're talking in veridical empirical terms, observations, right? So on the other end, when people who leave Christianity, right, do so because they didn't experience anything. They didn't find anything. They didn't see anything. They didn't hear anything. There was no connection made. And people who remain atheists say the same thing. I'm not seeing anything. You're not giving me any evidence, right? I'm not seeing any proof. And you're telling them things, and you're presenting them with your arguments, and your, this argument and that argument, and they're just not hearing it because it's not something that they really can hear, right? And so that's what this says. Atheists don't understand the Bible. Why don't atheists understand the Bible? Why would they understand the Bible? There's nothing in it for them to understand. It is on a fundamental level, nothing that their worldview agrees with or permits. So the bottom line is, people who are truly and 100% irrevocably Christian, right, are so because they've experienced something. And people who aren't, we'll call them atheists, but they could be something else, they haven't had that experience. So it doesn't matter how many scriptures you quote at them. It doesn't matter what kind of philosophical and scientific arguments and proofs that you throw at them. If they haven't experienced the Lord, if they haven't met him, then they're not going to believe in him. Because why would they? You might as William Lane Craig put it this way: you might as well be asking them to believe in leprechauns or Santa Claus or something like that, right? That's what it sounds like. So anyways, that's that. And I can't find the verse that I was looking for, but basically, what it says is, I was supposed to mark it out beforehand, but I didn't do that, so forgive me. That the Lord, that Jesus does something, and he says, he's going to glorify God, and the heavens opened up, and a voice spoke and said, "This is my son, I'm pleased in him," and for him to be glorified, and anyway, so, and it says some people heard the voice and said that it was thunder, and some people heard the voice and they said that it was an angel, and some people heard the voice and they believed. So the same thing's happening now. I mean, God, so I'll say this from a neutral perspective. If God is real, then he's real whether I believe in him or not, and he's real whether you don't believe in him or not. And if God is real, then he's moving and shaking, baby. Yeah, he's moving and doing stuff. He's working. He's busy. And so if we can't see that, then we're either not seeing it or we're not realizing it's him, right? And this is the same two things that are still happening now when God moves. Three things, actually. One is people look at it and say it's the thunder, right? It's just nature. It's just natural. That's just what it is. Or two, people look at it and they ascribe it to some sort of spiritual thing, but not God. It's my karma, and it's the good fairies and the bad spirits and whatever, but and then there's the few and narrow and people that hear and recognize the voice of God.